My name is Madeline Kerr, and I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who planned revenge. Not because I'm better than that, but because I never believed I'd need to. I lived my life quietly, on the sidelines really, doing my best to make everyone else feel comfortable. I kept the peace, made the coffee, remembered birthdays, forgave the cruel comments. I was the family's soft one. But there's something about watching your child cry in the backseat of your car on Christmas night that rewires something in your brain. That night, my heart didn't break. It hardened. My daughter Fiona had just turned 15. She's always been a quiet soul, a little odd in the most beautiful way. She reads novels from the 1940s, collects old postcards from thrift stores, and wears thick-framed glasses she doesn't even need. She's curious, intuitive, and always watching. A mirror of myself at that age, before life taught me to make myself small. When my ex-husband left, Fiona was only 9, and her world crumbled quietly. No tantrums, no screams, just silence and questions she was too afraid to ask out loud. I did my best to keep her world intact, to fill in the missing pieces with routine and gentleness. But there was one thing I couldn't protect her from: my family. My parents, Iris and Gerald, always preferred appearances over truth. They lived in a large colonial home in the suburbs of Albany, with white shutters, polished floors, and a fridge that never ran out of imported cheeses. My mother loved being admired. Her Christmas parties were legendary among the neighbors, with centerpieces that cost more than most people's rent, and a pianist flown in from Boston. My father was quieter, more calculating. He managed investments for half the neighborhood and considered himself above small talk, except when it came to subtly humiliating his children. My sister Amber was the pride of the family, smart, ambitious, and married to a plastic surgeon. She had 2 children, perfect, pale, and posed like a magazine ad. I, on the other hand, was a high school English teacher, divorced, prone to anxiety, a disappointment they tolerated out of obligation. When I received the invitation to this year's Christmas dinner, it arrived by email, cold and formal. Dinner will begin at 5:30 sharp. Dress code, festive attire. Kindly bring a bottle of wine and refrain from bringing pets or additional guests unless approved. Additional guests. That's what Fiona was now. I responded with a simple, "We'll be there." I didn't want drama. I wanted tradition. I wanted my daughter to feel included, even if it was all a performance. Maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. It wasn't. From the moment we walked in, I felt the shift. Amber's boys were gathered around the tree, laughing at something on a tablet. My father barely looked up from his phone. My mother smiled stiffly and said, "Fiona, you've grown." No hug, no warmth, just that look, like Fiona had committed a sin simply by existing. Dinner was awkward. My mother served dry turkey and bragged about her new water feature in the backyard. Amber talked about boarding schools. Fiona sat quietly, hands folded, eyes fixed on the centerpiece of cranberries and evergreen. When she tried to speak, mentioning a short story she was writing, Amber interrupted. "Oh, she's still into that little writing thing?" My mother laughed, sipping her wine. "It's a phase. Remember how you used to make up stories about haunted basements, Maddie?" I felt heat rise in my chest, but I said nothing. Not yet. The breaking point came after dessert. We were helping in the kitchen when I overheard my mother whispering to Amber near the pantry. They didn't see me standing by the doorway. "She shouldn't bring her anymore," my mother said. "It's always so tense when Fiona's here. The energy's just strange." Amber agreed. "She makes the boys uncomfortable. Stares too much. And that haircut. God. Madeline lets her do whatever she wants." They laughed. Then my mother said it. "Next year we should tell her. She can come, but not Fiona. It's better that way." I couldn't breathe. I stepped back, bumped a chair, and they turned. My mother froze. Amber blinked like she'd just been caught stealing. I didn't speak. I walked to Fiona, took her coat, and whispered, "We're leaving." She didn't ask why. She never did. On the ride home, she looked out the window and said, "I think I ruined everything." That broke me. I pulled over, took her face in my hands, and said, "No, baby, you saved me." She smiled faintly, but I saw it, the dullness in her eyes, the wound my family had carved into her. That night, I made a decision. I would not fight them with yelling or letters or confrontations they'd just twist into self-pity. I would do what I had never dared, show the world who they really were, behind the wine glasses and the polished floors. And the best part? They wouldn't even know I was doing it. Not until it was far too late. I didn't act right away. That's not how people like my mother fall. Not with fire and fury, but with patience, precision. I began by revisiting my own silence, reading through old journals, texts, and emails I had saved over the years, things I'd once dismissed as just how she is. I found dozens of little wounds I had buried, backhanded compliments, cruel jabs disguised as jokes, and the constant reminders that I was less than my sister. I printed them, each one, and laid them out across my dining table like evidence in a trial. But this wasn't just about me. This was about Fiona, so I gave her a voice. I asked her to write down every moment she remembered being dismissed, mocked, or made to feel like a ghost. At first, she resisted. "It's not a big deal, Mom. I'm used to it." That hurt more than anything. I told her gently that this was not about holding on to pain, but about refusing to carry it alone anymore. Eventually, she filled 3 notebooks. That's when I began recording. I knew my mother wouldn't stop inviting us. She needed me to keep playing the role, the lesser daughter, the background figure. She didn't suspect anything had changed. So I agreed to lunch the next week. I wore a soft blue sweater. I brought her a candle she'd probably re-gift. And in my purse, I carried a tiny voice recorder. She spent an hour talking about how Fiona was too intense for her age, and how Amber's children were emotionally balanced, like their father. She spoke like a politician, smiling while twisting the knife. I recorded 3 more lunches, 2 phone calls, and 1 conversation at the grocery store where she ran into a family friend and said with a chuckle, "Madeline's daughter, she's creative, but odd." Always that word, odd. Like Fiona was a misfit toy. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled and gathered more. Amber, meanwhile, gave me all the ammunition I could have dreamed of. She was constantly oversharing online. Facebook posts about her kids' awards, Instagram stories showing off her perfect home, and even a lifestyle blog where she wrote about raising emotionally intelligent children. The irony was suffocating. I scoured her content, looking for inconsistencies, lies, anything performative. It didn't take long. In one blog post, she praised her son Nolan for standing up to a classmate who was being rude. But Fiona had told me what really happened. Nolan had mocked a girl's weight, and when Fiona called him out, he threw a tantrum and told the teacher she was bullying him. Fiona got detention. I found the school report buried in my old emails. Then came the final piece. I discovered a voicemail on an old phone from years ago. It was from my mother, the night after my divorce was finalized. I'd called her in tears, asking if I could come stay the weekend, just to catch my breath. She had declined. "Amber's having guests. I don't want to upset the house rhythm," she said. That same night, she posted a photo online of a quiet evening with family by the fire. I had forgotten about that voicemail, but hearing it again, in her calm, dismissive tone, brought everything back. I had all I needed. Now, I needed a way to release it. The solution came during a sleepless night, when I found myself watching a series of anonymous storytelling videos online. Real people, narrating stories of family betrayal, workplace toxicity, and hidden truths. I realized that my story, our story, could live in that space, not as revenge porn, but as a mirror, a quiet, elegant kind of justice. So I began crafting it. I used a pseudonym, Eleanor Quinn. I hired a voice actress from an indie platform and gave her my script, broken into 4 parts, each one focused on a theme: silence, rejection, exposure, and aftermath. The audio was paired with soft music and abstract visuals, nothing traceable. I uploaded the videos one at a time, spacing them out over a month, to a channel called House of Hollow Rooms. Within a week, the first video reached 50,000 views. The comments were full of people saying they felt seen, that they'd lived through something similar, that they finally had words for what their own families did to them in secret. Some messaged the channel, asking if Eleanor was okay now. I didn't respond. I just read and cried. By the time the 4th video dropped, the series had over 1 million views. Amber found it first. She texted me a screenshot with one line. "This is about us, isn't it?" I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed, "Is it?" She didn't reply. 3 days later, my mother called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her tone wasn't angry, It was desperate. "Maddie, we saw the videos. Please call me back. I think we need to talk." For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. I wasn't sure what to do with it yet, but I knew I wouldn't give it away easily. The messages kept coming, not just from Amber and my mother, but from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, from church friends, from distant relatives who'd once ignored Fiona at birthday parties, but now seemed suddenly invested in clearing the air. I ignored them all. I watched, from the outside, as the pressure built. House of Hollow Rooms continued to gain traction. New channels began referencing it. Podcasts were dissecting the scripts. Even Reddit threads were speculating on who Eleanor might be. One user, clearly clever, had matched the storyline with a few breadcrumbs I didn't realize I'd left. References to a private school in upstate New York, a Christmas incident, a family with 2 daughters and a problematic grandson. They connected it to a blog run by someone named Amber Weston, my sister. That's when the narrative exploded. Her blog's comment section flooded with accusations. People started asking questions about Nolan, about the detention report, about the real story behind the polished family image she had curated for years. She shut the blog down 2 days later. My mother, however, went into full damage control mode. She began crafting social media posts about the dangers of online misinformation and how private family matters should never be weaponized. She never addressed the videos directly, but the passive aggression was loud and clear. She quoted scriptures. She posted throwbacks of us as children with syrupy captions like, "No family is perfect, but love always wins." It was almost laughable. I stayed silent until the email came. It was from a woman named Camille Roberts. She introduced herself as a journalist for a digital magazine that focused on family systems and generational trauma. She had been following House of Hollow Rooms from the beginning and wanted to feature the story, not as gossip, but as a case study of covert emotional abuse. She promised anonymity, offered to disguise voice and details, and said she could compensate me for the story. I considered declining, but then I remembered Fiona's face that night in the car, and I knew this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about truth. So I said yes. The article was released 2 weeks later under the title, "When Silence is Violence, A Daughter's Quiet Uprising." It was tasteful, haunting, and devastatingly accurate. Camille had captured every nuance, every layer of our story. The response was swift. Within hours, it was shared across social media platforms. Teachers, therapists, and adult children of narcissists quoted lines from it. A few local organizations even reached out to invite Eleanor to speak anonymously on healing from toxic family dynamics. I declined. This was never about fame. It was about justice. But justice has a strange way of echoing into places you don't expect. 2 months after the article dropped, I received a formal letter from a lawyer representing Amber and my parents. It accused me of defamation, character assassination, and malicious intent. I almost laughed. They didn't have proof. Not enough, anyway. But more importantly, they couldn't sue someone who didn't legally exist. Eleanor Quinn had no address, no ID, no tax records. The voice actress I had hired had signed a contract ensuring confidentiality and non-disclosure. The digital trail was clean. I was safe. Still, the letter revealed something deeper. They were scared. Not of me. Of exposure. Of losing the illusion they had built for decades. Fiona, meanwhile, began to bloom. She had started writing again. Real stories this time. Ones she wanted to share. She'd even submitted a short story to a national teen literary contest and placed in the top 10. Her piece? A quiet, poetic reflection on a girl who lived in a house with hollow walls, where whispers could wound more than screams. When she read it to me, I cried. And she smiled. Not that faint, polite smile she used to wear at family dinners, but a full, fearless one. We had dinner together the night I burned the final copy of the legal letter. Just her and me, in our tiny kitchen, laughing over slightly burned pasta. I told her, "You saved me without even trying." She looked at me and said, "You saved me by not letting it keep happening." We clinked glasses, grape juice in cheap mugs, and toasted to peace. Not the kind that comes from pretending, the kind you earn by choosing yourself. But I knew my mother wasn't done yet. There's one thing people like her can't stand more than humiliation. Being ignored. The silence didn't last long. About a month after the article's release, my mother showed up at Fiona's school. She had never done that before, not once in all her 16 years. Not when Fiona was in the hospital for asthma at age 10. Not for concerts, not for birthdays. But now that her public image was crumbling, she suddenly remembered she had a granddaughter. Fiona called me, whispering into the phone from the counselor's office. "She's here. She wants to talk to me." "Should I?" I told her calmly. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to. But if you do talk to her, record it." My voice was steady, but my hands were trembling. That evening, Fiona played me the audio. It was worse than I expected. My mother opened the conversation with false warmth. "Sweetheart, I don't know what your mother's been filling your head with." Then she shifted the blame expertly. "Families have disagreements, but this public smear campaign, it's dangerous. It could ruin your future too, you know. No one wants to hire someone from a family like this." She paused for dramatic effect and added, "I can help you, but only if you distance yourself from your mother." Fiona said nothing in the recording, just silence. Then, in the softest, calmest voice, she asked, "Did you mean it, when you said there was no room for me at Christmas?" A long pause. Then my mother replied, "I was upset. You know how these things are." And Fiona ended the conversation with a sentence I will never forget. "No, Grandma, I know exactly how these things are. That's why I brought my own chair now." That line went viral. Fiona asked me if she could share the recording anonymously. I hesitated, but then I realized this was her voice, her trauma, her boundary. So I gave her the space. She uploaded the clip to a teen support forum under the caption, "This is how you break the cycle." Within 48 hours, it had over 200,000 views. People weren't just sympathizing, they were cheering for her. She was invited to a podcast hosted by young women who had escaped narcissistic families. She did the interview using only her first name. I sat next to her off camera, holding her hand the entire time. I had never felt prouder. Meanwhile, my mother's world began to shrink. Her church community, once a safe haven of curated status, began to fracture. One of the pastors read the article and approached her with concern. She was asked to take a break from leading prayer groups. Amber's husband lost a significant client after one of the videos was shared on a parenting forum. And Nolan? He was suspended from school for an unrelated incident involving harassment. And suddenly, all of Amber's emotionally intelligent parenting didn't hold up so well. They tried to regroup. My mother emailed a long letter to both of us. 7 paragraphs of careful language. Apologies laced with justification. Guilt masked as regret. She ended with, "Perhaps we can move forward as a family together." Fiona read it and asked, "Do I have to respond?" I said, "No, baby. Sometimes closure is just silence." But I did respond. I sent a single envelope to her house, hand-delivered. Inside was a printed transcript of the conversation at Fiona's school. Below it, a note in my handwriting. "You can't fix what you won't admit." That was the last time I heard from her. A year has passed now. Fiona is thriving. She's been accepted into a pre-college creative writing program in Boston. She's making real friends, forming her own boundaries. And most importantly, she's learned that love isn't supposed to be something you have to earn with silence. As for me, I started therapy for the first time in my life. I also began teaching workshops for women in similar situations. Mothers, daughters, even grandmothers, trying to untangle the quiet violence of generational shame. House of Hollow Room still exists, but it's no longer a place for my story alone. It's become a community. People submit their own stories now. I review them, edit when needed, and help them find their voice. Some are small, like an ant who always mocked someone's weight. Others are vast, full of years of betrayal and neglect. But they all matter. Every voice matters. I've learned that revenge doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it's slow, methodical, and devastatingly elegant. Sometimes it's as simple as telling the truth and walking away before they can twist it again. And sometimes it's raising a daughter who refuses to inherit the silence you were forced to wear. People ask me if I regret making it public, if I worry that we aired too much. I don't, because we didn't start the fire. We just stopped pretending the house wasn't burning.